Okay, it's time to take a look at the filters section now. Now, this is one of the most powerful features within Prosperity, and mastering it will make your life a whole lot easier and is really going to start automating a lot of your budget work for you. It's going to really speed things up. Now, to start off with, some of the more astute viewers among you may have noticed that in January there's some transaction here that's showing as untagged. It's shown up in a couple of the other tutorial videos, but where is that transaction in this transactions window here? We're not showing anything. All of our transactions are in February, so why do we have this random $100 transaction here? Well, the answer is the filters. So if we look in the filtering section, you can basically read this filter from top to bottom. And what it's saying is the only transactions that are going to appear in the transactions area below are ones that fall through this filter. So our account, we don't have anything set, so we're not demanding that the account be anything. However, the date, we have asked that the month be February 2011. So I'm only showing transactions which take place in February 2011. So let's try just clicking this down arrow here, and we'll go to a previous month. Okay, so now we're at January 2011. Okay, that's interesting. So we've gone back a month, and now we have a different transaction that shows up here. And look at that. This is our $100 transaction. So this is some ATM withdrawal. So as we move this filter about, we can show different transactions in this area to make things simpler. Now, when you first start Prosperity, the default is to show the filter for just the current month. That's so you don't have hundreds or thousands of transactions from every account showing when you first start the application. That can be visually a little bit confusing. But if you're ever concerned that you're not seeing all of the transactions or something's gone wrong with the filtering, you can click this button up here and that will clear the filter. So watch what happens when I click that. Notice that we have this account from January appear. So now we're showing all transactions across all accounts. Now let's create a new cash account as a test. And I will add a transaction into that cash account. I'll call it test. And I'm going to tag it as food. And I'll make the amount $50. Actually, I should have made that negative because it's an expense for my cash account. All right, so now we have some transactions from some different accounts. So let's say account is cash. All right, so this is my only transaction that occurred in my cash account. Let's clear that. You can clear any individual line in the filter just by clicking the white page, or you can clear them all at the same time by clicking this button up here. So I'll clear that. Let's say date. We can also select different modes here. So let's say date. We can split these up on date. We'll say anything that happened before February 2nd, for instance. So I'll say before February 2nd. And there we go. We have some of these that show up now, but our one on February 14th does not. Now if I clear this, there we go. We can see it again. So let's say name contains, let's say mouse. As soon as I typed in M, actually, only computer mouse shows up. All right. We can look at memos as well. I don't have any memos presently, but let's set a memo of test memo. All right, I'm going to update that. And only things that contain test memo. All right, and now we're going to look at tags. And we only want to look at, for instance, tags that show up as food. So if I set tag to food, there we go. Now only things that contain a memo of test memo and have a tag of food show up. Now you can edit this filter however you want. You can also look at amounts. An important thing to remember with amounts is that they work on positive and negative values. So this $50 amount is less than 0. It is not less than minus 60. So that may be a bit confusing when you first start working with Prosperity. If I, for instance, put greater than $0, we have no transactions that meet all these. However, if I clear these filters here, we see indeed we have a paycheck here, and that was an income, so that has an amount greater than $0. So that's the basic functionality of the filtering. Now, one last thing we'll go through. Let's say I want to quickly recall a filter that only filters out things that are food. Let's do that. So let's say tag is food. Now, one quick thing actually, before I do that, I'm just going to clear the filter again. As you select transactions, you may notice that up here in the update window, it sort of shows you an amalgamation of what's involved, the transactions that you have selected. So as I select multiple transactions, it's going to show me. You can just click and drag if you want. Alternatively, you can click and then control click on other ones, or click and then shift click to select a grouping of them. Anyway, as I click on one, let's say this food one, I can actually copy any of these items over to the filter section. Or if I want, with this top button here, I can copy the entire thing over. So if I copy every line here, click that, there we go. So my one transaction shows up here. So this has copied all of the information. Now that's very specific. So I'm going to clear that filter. Let's say all we care about is this food tag. So I'm just going to copy over things that have a tag of food. Alright, now I'm going to save this filter by adding a filter here. Alternatively, I can go up to the filters menu and add a filter. So I'm going to create a filter. We'll call it my food expenses. Okay, we'll ignore this auto tagging for now. I'm going to talk about that in a later tutorial. So now we have a filter up here. Now if I clear the filters, we see all of our transactions, and if I go back and select my food expenses, because I want to look at things that have a tag of food, there we go. It calls up that transaction that we had before. Now, for instance, let's create a new transaction as a little test. We'll call it another restaurant, and the tag will be food. Alright, and let's say that we spent $10. Great. Now if I call up this filter, both of these show up because they both have a tag of food. So that's basically how the filtering section works, and I think you're really getting the hang of things now.